In a small town where the roads remember every set of tires that ever left, Ivy learned what silence sounds like after goodbye. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of quiet that settles into the walls of a farmhouse kitchen. After the door closes and the headlights disappear, Noah left with his pride packed neatly beside his ambition, telling himself it was the only way to survive. He didn't slam doors. He didn't scream. He simply chose the version of life that asked the least of his heart. While Ivy stood in the wreckage of promises that had once felt unbreakable, seasons kept moving without permission. Winter swallowed the fields. Spring returned anyway. Summers came with sweat and work and the kind of healing no one applauds. And Ivy, who everyone expected to be broken, became something harder to define. Steady, capable, strong. Years later, on a cold evening when the town lights looked like distant stars, a familiar car rolled back into Maple Ridge. The tires crunched gravel. The engine went quiet. And there he was, Noah, standing at the edge of the life he abandoned, holding regret like it could rewrite time. He expected tears. He expected anger. He expected the past to wait for him. But Ivy wasn't waiting. And as Noah watched her step into the porch light, calm, unshaken, and unmistakably whole, one question tightened in his chest. Was it too late? Stay until the end. Because what happens next isn't just a love story. It's a story about redemption that has to be earned, one choice at a time. Maple Ridge was the kind of town where mornings smelled like coffee and cut grass, and everyone waved even when they didn't know your last name. Ivy had grown up with that rhythm: slow roads, honest work, steady seasons. She liked how the world felt smaller here, not easier, just clearer. And when Noah arrived years ago, he fit in like a storm that pretended to be sunlight. Charming, restless, hungry for more than what the town could offer. And still, Ivy loved him like something holy, patient, brave, and real. They met behind the local diner, where Ivy worked weekend shifts to save money. And Noah fixed an old truck for the owner because he couldn't stand wasted potential. He had oil on his hands and big plans in his voice, the kind of man who talked about the future as if it owed him something. Ivy liked listening because his dreams felt contagious. And when he looked at her, he didn't look past her. He saw her. For a while, that was enough to make her believe in forever. They built a life in small pieces, shared groceries, shared prayers, shared quiet. Noah rented a modest house near the edge of the fields, and Ivy moved in slowly, as if she were teaching her heart not to rush into another kind of loss. The town watched them with approval, the way small towns always do, because love there was considered a public promise, not a private feeling. At night, Ivy would fall asleep with Noah's arm around her waist, and she would think, this is what safety feels like. But Noah was never fully still, not even in his happiest moments. He would stand on the porch and stare at the road like it was calling him. Sometimes he talked about bigger cities, bigger hospitals, bigger money, even though Maple Ridge had given him work, respect, and stability. His ambition wasn't a flaw. It was a fire. The problem was that Noah didn't know how to hold fire without burning the people nearest. And Ivy didn't know she was standing too close. The first crack appeared as an envelope in the mailbox, a letter with an emblem from a medical tech company in Chicago. Noah opened it like a man opening a door he'd been knocking on for years. They wanted him, his ideas, his drive, his ability to lead teams. He held the offer in both hands, eyes shining with victory and terror. Ivy smiled at him and meant it, even as fear pressed gently against her ribs. "Your dream," she said softly, "is finally here." That night, Noah spoke fast, as if slowing down would make him doubt. "This is it, Ivy. This is the chance," he repeated, again and again. He described offices with glass walls and salaries that sounded unreal, opportunities that could turn his life into a headline. Ivy listened, nodded, asked careful questions, because she was the kind of woman who didn't crush someone else's hope. But when she went to the bathroom and closed the door, she breathed like she was drowning. It wasn't the dream that scared her. It was the distance that dreams sometimes demand. Maple Ridge didn't just feel like home. It was her roots, her people, her purpose. And Ivy had learned early that when someone is hungry for more, they often start seeing love as something that slows them down. She stared at her reflection, palms pressed to the sink, and whispered, "Please don't make me pay for your ambition." The next few weeks became a quiet tug of war. Noah talked about leaving for a year, maybe 2, like time was simple. Ivy tried to be practical, asked about long distance, asked about plans, asked where she fit in the life he was chasing. He answered with affection, but not with clarity. "Of course you're part of it," he said, kissing her forehead. But it sounded like comfort, not commitment. Then Ivy got the call that changed the air in her lungs. It happened at the rural clinic where she volunteered on Mondays, helping the nurse with paperwork and translating medical terms into human language. The doctor's voice was gentle, too gentle. They needed her to come in for tests, to talk about symptoms she'd been ignoring. Ivy sat on the edge of the clinic chair afterward, staring at her hands, feeling as if her own body had turned into a stranger. She didn't tell Noah right away, not because she didn't trust him, because she didn't want fear to be the thing that poisoned his dream before it even started. She told herself she would wait until she understood more, until she had facts instead of panic. But nights became heavier, and when Noah talked about apartments in Chicago, Ivy's throat tightened with things unsaid. Her silence was love, but it was also loneliness. When the results came back, Ivy heard the words like distant thunder. It wasn't a tragedy, not a death sentence, but it was serious. A condition that would require treatment, monitoring, discipline. The doctor spoke about medication, follow-ups, and the possibility of surgery down the line. Ivy nodded as if she were listening to someone else's life. Then she walked out into the parking lot, where the wind cut through her jacket, and she cried without sound because she refused to be fragile in public. That evening, she told Noah in the kitchen under the warm yellow light. She kept her voice steady on purpose because she needed him to hear her, not to pity her. "Noah," she said, "I need you with me for a while." His face shifted, shock first, then concern, then something harder to name, calculation. He held her hands, but his eyes looked past her shoulder, toward the door of his future. "Ivy, I'm here," he said quickly, squeezing her fingers. He promised appointments, promised rides, promised support, but his phone lit up with emails from Chicago, and every time it buzzed, Ivy watched his attention drift. She could feel him splitting in two, one half trying to be a good man, the other half terrified of losing his chance. And Ivy understood something painful. Fear can love you and still abandon you. A week later, the argument came like a storm that had been building quietly. Noah said the job required him to start in 3 weeks. Ivy asked him to delay, just long enough to stabilize her treatment plan. He stared at her as if she had asked him to sacrifice his identity. "You want me to lose this," he said, voice sharp with panic. "I don't want you to lose anything," she answered, eyes wet but unwavering. "I want you to choose me while I'm fighting." Noah paced the kitchen, hands in his hair, breathing hard. "I'm not saying I'm leaving you," he insisted, as if saying it louder could make it true. "I'm saying I can't stay trapped here because life got complicated." The word trapped hit Ivy like a slap, because loving her, building a home with her, sharing nights and prayers, was that a trap now? Just because she needed him? Ivy didn't beg. She never begged. She stood still, letting the truth settle between them like ash. "I'm not asking for perfection," she said quietly. "I'm asking for presence." Noah's jaw tightened, and for a second she saw the boy inside him, the one who feared being ordinary more than he feared breaking a heart. He looked at her and looked away. And that was the moment Ivy knew he had already decided. He left on a Thursday morning before sunrise. There was no dramatic goodbye, no apology that sounded like repentance, just a suitcase by the door and a note on the counter. Words that tried to soften what his actions made brutal. "I love you, Ivy. I just need to do this. I'll come back when things settle." She read it twice, then folded it carefully, because even betrayal felt like something she had to keep tidy. When the car disappeared down the road, the silence arrived immediately. Ivy stood on the porch in her thin sweater, cold biting her skin, and she watched the dust settle as if the earth itself was disappointed. Inside, The house still smelled like him. Soap, coffee, ambition. Her hands shook, not from the weather, but from the realization that she was alone in the fight. Then she lifted her chin, wiped her cheeks, and whispered through clenched teeth, "He thought I would be broken, but he has no idea who I am." The first week after Noah left felt unreal. Not because Ivy couldn't believe he was gone, because she could feel his absence everywhere. In the mug he used every morning, in the creak of the porch step at dawn, in the silence that didn't ask permission, and in the fear she refused to name out loud. She drove herself to the hospital for the next appointment, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping her coat. The sky was a dull winter gray over Maple Ridge. Inside, fluorescent lights made everything look too honest. A nurse smiled softly and called her sweetheart. Ivy nodded as if she was fine. Then she sat down and felt her chest tighten anyway. The doctor explained the plan in calm steps. Medication first, tests scheduled, follow-ups marked. Ivy listened like a woman learning a new language, a language made of numbers and risks and patience. She asked questions, wrote notes, kept her voice steady. Because if her life was changing, she would manage it. She would not collapse just because he disappeared. When she returned home, she didn't crawl into bed. She opened the windows despite the cold. She washed the sheets like she was cleansing the air. She moved Noah's things into a box without drama. Not throwing them away, not clinging to them either. Just making space where he no longer belonged. Then she taped the box shut and exhaled like a vow. The town noticed her quiet endurance immediately. Maple Ridge always noticed what wasn't said. Mara from the diner brought soup and didn't ask questions. A neighbor fixed Ivy's porch light without being asked. Dr. Henson at the clinic offered extra shifts, steady work. Ivy accepted help with a simple thank you, because strength didn't mean doing everything alone. Noah texted on the third day. A short message, carefully neutral, almost polite. "Settled in. Thinking of you. You okay?" Ivy stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Then she typed, "I'm handling it," and sent it. Not because she didn't want more, because she wouldn't beg for what should have been given. Weeks turned into a routine she didn't ask for. Pills in the morning, clinic hours, paperwork, fatigue. Some nights her body felt like it weighed twice as much. But Ivy still showed up, still smiled, still listened to others. Pain has a strange way of sharpening empathy. And in the waiting rooms, she learned to comfort strangers, even while her own heart was bruised and private. Winter deepened, and the farms looked asleep. Fields stretched pale under a thin layer of snow. Ivy drove the outreach van down narrow roads anyway, checking on older couples who hated hospitals, delivering supplies, taking blood pressure, explaining symptoms. She loved the work because it mattered immediately. It reminded her she was still useful in the world. One afternoon, exhaustion hit her like a sudden wave. She sat in the van, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The urge to call Noah surged, sharp and desperate. Then she pictured his suitcase by the door. His word trapped, still echoing in the kitchen. And Ivy swallowed the impulse like medicine. She would not hand him the power to abandon her twice. Instead, she called her mother and told the truth. Not everything, just enough to be held. Her mother arrived with a worn coat and steady eyes. She didn't curse Noah or demand explanations. She simply made tea and sat beside Ivy at the table. "Baby," she said softly, "you are not alone." And Ivy finally cried the tears she wouldn't waste on his silence. By February, Ivy's discipline became visible. Her strength was not loud, but it was consistent. She learned the side effects, learned the limits of her energy. She started meal planning, sleeping earlier, protecting her body. She wrote reminders on the fridge like gentle commands. Rest, hydrate, breathe, and every small choice felt like reclaiming her life. Noah's messages became less frequent. A photo of a skyline, a quick, busy week, nothing else. Maple Ridge began to feel farther than miles. Ivy realized distance wasn't the real separation. It was his unwillingness to carry her reality with him. He wanted love that stayed convenient, and Ivy was learning to require love that stayed present. So she made a decision no one saw. She applied to a nursing program in the next county. Evening classes, tough schedule, long months ahead. She filled out forms at the diner between shifts. Mara squeezed her hand when Ivy handed in the application. "You're doing it," Mara whispered, proud. Ivy nodded, eyes bright, feeling something like hope. The first day of class, Ivy sat in the back row, not hiding, just observing, like she always did. She listened to lectures about anatomy and emergency response. She took notes with focused, stubborn attention. Her brain felt alive in a way grief couldn't erase. And when she walked out into cold night air, she realized growth had its own kind of warmth. Spring arrived slowly, cautious as a shy apology. Snow melted into mud, then into green beginnings. Farmers started talking about planting again. The town smelled like wet soil and new chance. Ivy stood on the porch one evening, breathing deeper. She wasn't healed, not fully, but she was moving, and that mattered more than being okay. A letter came from Chicago in late April, not from Noah directly. An official update, impersonal. He'd been promoted, the company expanding fast. The town shared the news like it was a victory for everyone. Ivy read it once and felt a strange calm settle. Success hadn't made him braver where it counted. It had only made him louder in places she no longer cared about. That night, Ivy opened the drawer where she kept his note. She read the line, "I'll come back when things settle." Then she smiled. Small, tired, certain, because life never truly settles, not for anyone. You either learn to stay through the shaking, or you keep running and call it purpose. Ivy folded the note and placed it back, no longer wounded by it. On the first warm day of May, Ivy drove past the fields. Sunlight spilled over the land like a quiet promise. She pulled over, stepped out, and let the wind hit her face. Her body was still healing, her heart still scarred, but her spine felt strong beneath it all. She whispered to the open road, "He left." Then she added, steady as sunrise, "And I didn't fall apart." 3 years can remake a person without asking permission. Maple Ridge watched Ivy change in plain sight, not into someone colder, into someone steadier. She finished nursing school on nights and weekends. She earned her place at the rural hospital with quiet excellence. And when people said her name now, they said it with respect. Not as a tragedy, but as a pillar. Her body had stabilized with discipline and stubborn hope. Treatment became routine, not a sentence. She learned her limits without surrendering her life. She moved with purpose, not with fear. Some scars stayed, but they no longer controlled her. The pain taught her boundaries like they were sacred. And Ivy stopped apologizing for needing stability. The hospital became her second home in every season. In winter, the halls smelled like pine and disinfectant. In spring, the waiting room filled with muddy boots and farm families. In summer, heat exhaustion and injuries came like clockwork. Ivy learned how to hold a hand without promising miracles. She learned how to speak truth with gentleness. And people trusted her because she never pretended. She also built something beyond the hospital walls. A community outreach program for farmers and elderly neighbors. Mobile checkups, medication counseling, mental health referrals. She fought for funding like it was personal, because it was. She'd learned what it meant to need help and not have it. So she made sure others wouldn't feel that kind of loneliness. That was Ivy's redemption, turning pain into provision. On a cold December morning, the administrator called her office. The woman sounded excited, almost breathless. "A major donor is coming," she said. "In person." Ivy kept her face neutral, pen poised over paperwork. "What donor?" she asked, already sensing the shift in the air. There was a pause, like a drumbeat before impact. "Harper Health Innovations," the administrator said. Noah Harper. Ivy's chest tightened, but she did not freeze. She stared at the window where snow drifted past bare branches. The name felt like an old bruise pressed too hard. Her mind tried to rewind, kitchen light, suitcase, note on the counter. But Ivy had trained herself not to live in flashbacks. She inhaled slowly, steadying her pulse with practiced calm. "Okay," she said, voice even. "What time is he arriving?" The town found out before lunch because Maple Ridge always did. Whispers moved faster than winter wind. "Noah's coming back," people said, half thrilled, half judgmental. "He made it big," they added, as if success forgave everything. Some people pitied Ivy again like it was a familiar habit. But Ivy didn't accept pity anymore. She accepted accountability. And she decided she would meet him as the woman she had become. When the day came, the hospital lobby glowed with warm lights. New Year decorations still hung. Gold ribbons, paper stars, soft bulbs. Nurses adjusted name tags. Volunteers stood straighter. Cameras hovered. The administrator rehearsed her speech like this was a holiday pageant. Ivy stood near the triage desk, calm hands, steady eyes. She reminded herself, "He is not my center. He is simply a chapter that returned." The doors opened, and Noah walked in like a man carrying weather. Tailored coat, polished shoes, confident posture, successful, unmistakably. But his face had changed in ways money couldn't hide. His eyes looked quieter, less arrogant, more awake. He shook hands, smiled for photos, thanked everyone with practiced ease. Then, as if pulled by instinct, his gaze found Ivy, and he stopped like the floor had shifted under him. For a heartbeat, Ivy saw what he expected to see. A broken woman, a sad story, an easy redemption. But Ivy didn't give him any of that. She stood tall in her scrubs, badge gleaming, shoulders steady. No trembling, no performance, no rage he could dismiss. Just a calm that said, "I survived you." And Noah's expression cracked with something like shock. The administrator hurried over with a bright, rehearsed smile. "Noah, this is Ivy," she said, like introducing strangers at a party. "She runs our outreach program. She's one of our strongest leaders." Noah blinked, as if the word leader didn't fit his old memory. He stepped forward slightly, careful, uncertain for the first time. "Ivy," he said, voice low. "It's good to see you." Ivy nodded once. "Mr. Harper," she replied, professional and distant. They walked the halls with the group, tour voices echoing. Noah asked smart questions about equipment and staffing needs. He listened, really listened, with a seriousness that unsettled Ivy. He didn't flirt with nostalgia. He studied the reality in front of him. When a child cried in the waiting room, Ivy knelt to comfort him. Noah watched like he was seeing a different language of strength, and Ivy felt his stare like heat on winter skin. After the tour, Noah lingered near a quiet corridor. The crowd drifted away toward the conference room. He stayed behind, hands in his pockets, as if he didn't know where to place them. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said softly, almost to the floor. Ivy didn't soften at the word trouble. "Then don't," she answered, calm as a locked door. Noah flinched, then nodded like he deserved it. "I heard about the program," he continued, careful with every word. "The outreach van, the farm visits, the clinic partnerships." Ivy's eyes narrowed slightly. "You heard?" she repeated, unimpressed. Noah swallowed. "I should have known earlier," he admitted. Silence stretched, thick with years he couldn't return. Ivy spoke with quiet precision. "Knowing isn't the same as staying, Noah." The use of his name felt like a blade. Truth, not tenderness. Noah's shoulders dropped a fraction, humility showing through success. "I came back because I needed to face what I did," he said. Not a speech, not a plea, just a confession. Ivy studied him like she studied symptoms, looking for patterns, not promises. "You didn't face it for 3 years," she said evenly. Noah nodded once, shame plain. "I didn't know how," he whispered. Ivy's voice stayed steady. "Then learn," she replied. He took a slow breath, eyes glossy but controlled. "I'm funding the expansion," he said, "and the wellness center." Ivy didn't react because money had never been what she lacked. She lacked presence, truth, consistency, things you can't wire transfer. "If you're doing this to feel better, don't," she said quietly. Noah looked at her, jaw tight, accepting the accusation. "I'm doing it because I finally understand responsibility," he said. Ivy stepped closer, just enough to make the moment real. "You don't get to buy redemption in my town," she said. Her voice wasn't cruel. It was clean. No grand gestures, no speeches, no sudden hero story. Noah's eyes held hers, steady for once. "Then tell me what it costs," he said, almost like prayer. Ivy answered without hesitation. "Time." The intercom beeped, pulling Ivy back into duty. She turned toward the nurse's station, then paused. "If you're here for a photo," she said over her shoulder, "you'll be gone by next week." Noah didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself, just listened. "If you're here to change," Ivy added, voice firm as winter, "PC Maple Ridge will see it, and so will I." Noah didn't leave the next week. That was the first thing the town noticed. Not the donation, not the suit, not the polished smile, the staying. Maple Ridge was used to men who made noise and disappeared. But Noah kept showing up in the same hallways, like he had finally learned where the real work lived. He attended meetings with the hospital board and spoke less than expected. When he did speak, it was specific, practical, unglamorous. Staffing gaps, supply chain issues, rural transport problems. He didn't offer quick fixes that sounded like ego. He asked, "What do you need?" and waited for real answers. People leaned in despite themselves. Even Ivy, watching from the edges, felt the shift. Still, Ivy refused to be moved by a week of good behavior. She'd seen men perform when guilt needed an audience. She'd seen promises delivered like flowers, pretty, temporary. So she kept her distance, stayed professional, stayed careful. When Noah tried to approach, she redirected to paperwork. When he lingered too long, she excused herself to a patient. It wasn't punishment, it was protection. The storm that hit on Wednesday made everything harder. Black ice covered farm roads like a silent trap. A pickup slid into a ditch. A teenager arrived shaking and bleeding. An elderly couple came in coughing, too proud to admit fear. The ER filled fast, nurses moving like controlled chaos. Ivy took triage, calm voice slicing through panic, and then she saw Noah step through the doors. No cameras, no entourage. He wasn't dressed for a photo op, just a dark sweater and rolled sleeves, hair damp from snow. He walked to the charge nurse and asked quietly, "Where can I help?" The nurse blinked like she didn't know how to answer. Noah didn't wait for permission to be praised. He started carrying blankets, wiping chairs, guiding families. He made himself useful in the places that never get applause. Ivy watched him from behind the triage desk, not with softness, with suspicion sharpened by memory. But Noah didn't look for her approval. He didn't keep checking to see if she noticed. He just kept moving, steady and focused. And something in Ivy's chest tightened painfully, because the man who once ran from her need was now running toward other people's. Later, in a supply closet, they crossed paths. The door clicked shut behind them by accident. The space was small, packed with gauze and antiseptic. For a moment, the air felt too close, too intimate. Noah held his hands up slightly, palms open, like surrender. "I'm not here to corner you," he said softly. Ivy's eyes stayed sharp. "Then don't," she replied. Noah nodded immediately and stepped back. "I'm sorry," he began, voice rough. Ivy lifted a hand. Not harsh, just final. "Not that," she said. Noah blinked, confused. "You don't get to say sorry and expect my nervous system to relax." Her words landed clean, like medical truth. Noah swallowed and listened. "What do you want me to say?" he asked quietly. Ivy didn't soften at the vulnerability. She respected it cautiously. "I want you to be honest," she said. Not poetic, not impressive. Honest. Noah's jaw clenched, then released. He looked down at the floor like it might hold him steady. "I left because I was scared," he admitted, "and because I didn't want to look weak." Ivy's stomach tightened, but she stayed composed. "Scared of what?" she asked. Noah's voice dropped. "Scared of failing," he said. "Scared of being ordinary. Scared of needing you." He breathed out a bitter laugh with no humor. "When you got sick, it felt like life was demanding responsibility from me." He looked up, eyes wet but controlled. "And I chose escape." The word hit Ivy like a bruise pressed hard. Escape. That's what she had been. A responsibility to flee. She leaned against the shelf, arms crossed, steady as stone. "I didn't need a hero," she said quietly. "I needed a partner." Noah nodded, face tightening with shame. "I know," he whispered, "and I hate who I was." Ivy studied him carefully, not to comfort him, to measure whether his pain was real or strategic. The old Noah used emotion as a tool. This Noah looked like a man who had finally run out of tools. He didn't blame her. He didn't defend himself. He just took the weight and held it. That was new, and it frightened Ivy more than anger did. "You're funding the hospital," Ivy said, voice level. "Why?" Noah's gaze held hers. "Because I can," he answered simply, then shook his head. "No, because I should have." He swallowed. "I left you to fight alone." His voice cracked slightly. "I can't rewrite that, but I can repair what my absence broke in this town." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "And me?" she asked. Noah inhaled slowly, careful with the truth. "I can't repair you," he said, and Ivy's chest tightened until he continued. "Because you already repaired yourself." He looked at her like he finally understood the miracle he'd missed. "I can only show you that I'm safe now." His voice lowered. "And I know safety is earned in months, not minutes." Ivy's throat burned, but she didn't let tears rise. The intercom beeped again. Another patient, another urgency. Ivy turned toward the door, then stopped. She didn't want to leave this unfinished. Not because she needed closure, because she needed boundaries. "If you stay," she said, "you do it without demanding me." Noah nodded instantly. "If you're here to become a better man, do it whether I choose you or not." Noah's eyes glistened. "I will," he said, voice firm. Ivy opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The noise of the ER rushed back around them. People shouted names, carts rolled, phones rang. Noah followed but kept distance, respecting her space. Ivy noticed that, how he didn't try to touch her. Old Noah would have used charm to blur the line. This Noah walked like someone afraid to harm her again, and Ivy hated how that restraint felt like care. After her shift, Ivy walked outside into the snow. Her breath came out in white clouds, hands cold in her pockets. Noah waited near the curb, not blocking her path. "I won't ask you to forgive me," he said softly. "I know forgiveness isn't a switch." Ivy looked at him, eyes tired. "Then what are you asking?" she said. Noah's voice was low, steady. "For a chance to prove that I can stay." Ivy stared at him for a long moment, then looked up at the hospital lights glowing in the dark. Her heart remembered pain like muscle memory, but her mind remembered strength like discipline. "You can stay," she said finally, voice calm. "But you will not be central to my life just because you returned." Noah nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand," he whispered. Ivy held his gaze firm as winter. "Then show me," she said. Noah started showing up the next morning before the sun did. Not to the boardroom, to the places where Maple Ridge actually breathed. The diner where early farmers drank coffee in silence. The clinic where the heater always struggled. The back lot of the hospital, where supplies were unloaded in the cold. He arrived without announcing himself, like he was finally learning that redemption begins where pride dies. People didn't know what to do with him at first. Some were polite and distant, the way small towns punish without screaming. Others were curious, eager to forgive because money makes people forget. But there were also the ones who remembered Ivy's face 3 years ago. The women who watched her keep working while her eyes looked hollow. The older men who saw Noah leave and called it cowardice under their breath. Maple Ridge didn't do public trials. It did quiet judgment. And Noah had returned to it willingly. Ivy refused to be the first one to soften. She kept her focus on patients, on schedules, on the outreach van. When someone asked if she was okay with Noah being around, she answered calmly, "This is a hospital, not a stage." She didn't let the town turn her pain into entertainment, and she didn't let Noah's presence hijack her peace. Her boundaries were not walls made of anger. They were doors that only opened for consistency. The first time Noah volunteered for the outreach program, the nurse in charge hesitated, then handed him a clipboard. "No special treatment," she warned. Noah nodded once. "Good," he said. He rode with them on icy farm roads, carried medical bags, held doors, listened more than he spoke. When Ivy gave instructions, he followed them without argument, and Ivy noticed something that unsettled her. He didn't try to lead her. He let her lead. They stopped at a farmhouse where an elderly man refused to take medication. His wife stood in the kitchen with tears in her eyes, exhausted. Ivy sat at the table, spoke gently, asked questions. She didn't shame him. She respected his fear. Noah stood behind her, quiet, attentive, not interrupting. When Ivy asked for warm water and towels, Noah moved immediately. No ego, no impatience, just service. And Ivy felt a small crack in her certainty, because this looked like a man who had learned humility the hard way. The town began telling stories about him again, but different stories this time. He fixed Mrs. Caldwell's porch steps, someone said. He donated but didn't put his name anywhere, another whispered. He drove a family to the ER at midnight, Mara mentioned, casual. People didn't praise him loudly. They reported him like weather, like facts. And the facts were consistent. Noah was staying. Ivy hated how that consistency made her heart react like a wound testing if it was safe to heal. One afternoon, Ivy overheard two nurses talking near the break room. Maybe he really changed, one said. Money doesn't change men, the other replied. Ivy didn't join the conversation. She kept walking, jaw tight, because the hardest part of healing wasn't forgiving him. It was admitting she still cared what kind of man he became. That care felt dangerous. Care was the doorway to hope, and hope was vulnerable. A week later, the outreach van broke down on a back road. Ivy pulled over beside a fence line, wind cutting through her coat. She tried calling the garage, no service. She stared at the empty field and felt the old loneliness rise. Not dramatic, not loud, just familiar. For a second, she pictured Noah's note again. I'll come back when things settle. Her throat tightened as if the past had hands. She forced herself to breathe, steadying her heart like a patient's pulse. Then she heard tires on gravel behind her. A truck slowed, headlights blinking through gray sky. Noah stepped out, coat open, hair damp from snow. He didn't smile like a savior. He didn't ask questions that sounded like control. He looked at the van, then at Ivy. You okay? He asked softly. Ivy stared at him, suspicious and relieved at the same time. It's the battery, she said, voice tight. Noah nodded and moved without hesitation. He grabbed tools from his truck like a man who'd been waiting to be useful. Cold wind whipped across his hands. He didn't flinch. He worked in silence, focused, patient. Ivy watched his knuckles redden, watched him keep going anyway. When the engine finally turned over, he leaned back against the van and exhaled slowly. No one should be stuck out here, he said quietly. Ivy swallowed hard. I wasn't stuck, she replied, reflexive. Noah's eyes softened. You shouldn't have had to prove that, he answered. That sentence hit Ivy in a place she didn't show anyone, because she had spent 3 years proving she wasn't stuck, proving she didn't need him, proving she could survive. And she had, but survival wasn't the same as being cared for. Ivy looked away toward the fields. I'm fine, she said again, quieter this time. Noah didn't argue. He simply said, okay, and stayed by the truck like a guard. On the drive back to town, Ivy felt anger rise unexpectedly, not at him, at herself, for the way her heart reacted, for the way a simple act of help could make her feel something like safety. She gripped the steering wheel harder and told herself, do not confuse effort with permanence. Do not confuse guilt with love. Yet another part of her whispered, but what if it's different this time? That whisper frightened her more than any storm. The next day, Noah asked for a meeting at the clinic. Not about Ivy, about the wellness center plan. He brought blueprints and a notebook full of questions. He asked Ivy to criticize it, to tear it apart if needed. No compliments, he said. I want it to work. Ivy studied the pages, surprised by how seriously he treated her mind. She pointed out transportation gaps, accessibility issues, staffing demands. Noah listened and wrote everything down. He didn't defend his idea like ego. He adjusted it like responsibility. After an hour, Ivy leaned back, exhausted. Noah looked up, eyes steady. "You're incredible," he said, softer than before. Ivy's spine stiffened. "Don't," she warned quietly. Noah nodded. "Okay," he said. Then he added carefully, "I'm not trying to flatter you." His voice lowered. "I'm trying to admit the truth." Ivy's throat tightened, and she hated it. Because truth had power, and she wasn't ready to let him have any. That week, Ivy's mother called with worry in her voice. Her symptoms had returned, subtle, frightening. Ivy's chest tightened as she drove to her parents' house. Old fear rose like smoke. Not again, not now. She kept her voice calm, reassured her mother, scheduled appointments. But at night, alone in her kitchen, Ivy sat at the table and stared at the wall. There are pains you never fully outgrow. You just learn to carry them with dignity. Noah found out from Mara before Ivy told anyone. He didn't confront Ivy at work. He didn't demand to be included. He arrived at her porch with a paper bag of groceries and a folder of hospital contact numbers. He stood on the bottom step, hands visible, voice gentle. "I heard about your mom," he said. "I'm sorry." Ivy's eyes flashed. "Don't say sorry," she replied. Noah nodded immediately. "Okay," he said. Then quietly, "What do you need?" No pressure, just presence. Ivy wanted to refuse him out of principle. But principle without wisdom becomes pride. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the folder. Not the groceries, just the folder. Noah didn't push the rest. He simply stepped back, respecting her pace. "I can drive you," he offered. "Or just sit here." Ivy swallowed, eyes burning. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, raw. Noah's answer was simple and devastating. "Because I didn't before," he said. That night, Ivy didn't sleep easily. She lay in bed listening to the wind against the windows. Her mind replayed Noah's steady voice on the porch. Not charming, not pleading, just accountable. She stared into the dark and admitted something she hated. His actions were starting to feel real. Not enough to trust, not enough to forgive, but enough to make her heart shift. Like ice beginning to melt. And Ivy whispered into the darkness, barely audible, "Don't make me believe you. Unless you intend to stay." The crisis didn't arrive with warning. It came the way rural life often does. Fast, messy, unforgiving. A storm swept through Maple Ridge late on a Friday afternoon, turning farm roads into slick ribbons and knocking power lines down. The hospital ran on generators, lights flickering like tired prayers. Ambulances rolled in one after another, tires spitting slush. And Ivy felt the old familiar adrenaline take over. Steady, sharp, useful. A chain reaction accident had happened on County Road 9. A truck skidded, another clipped the shoulder, a third rolled into a ditch. 3 families, 2 teenagers, 1 older man with labored breathing. The waiting room filled with crying children and panicked parents. Nurses moved like controlled chaos, doctors barking orders. Ivy stood at triage like a lighthouse in fog. She didn't have time for history, only for life. Noah arrived without being called. Not dressed for the cold, coat damp with snow, eyes alert. He didn't walk in like a donor. He walked in like a man who belonged to the work. He found the charge nurse and asked, "Where do you need me?" Then he started helping, guiding families, carrying blankets, holding doors. Ivy saw him once across the hall, and he didn't try to meet her eyes. He just kept moving. A teenager screamed when the doctor mentioned surgery. His mother collapsed into a chair, like her bones turned to water. Ivy knelt beside her, speaking calm words in a storm of fear. The woman's hands shook uncontrollably, breath coming sharp and shallow. Noah stood behind Ivy, quiet as shadow, then offered the woman his coat. Not dramatic, gentle. He said only, "You're not alone," and stayed until her breathing slowed. Ivy watched, throat tight because he was doing what he hadn't done for her. Later, the generators groaned, and one wing lost power completely. The hospital staff scrambled to relocate equipment and patients. Ivy shouted instructions, her voice steady over the chaos. Noah followed her lead without question, lifting heavy crates, moving supplies. When a nurse stumbled, Noah caught her elbow gently and kept her upright. He worked like he was trying to earn something invisible. and Ivy hated how much she respected that. Around midnight, the storm eased, but exhaustion spread like fog. The worst injuries were stabilized, families finally breathing again. Ivy stepped into the hallway outside the supply room and pressed her forehead to the wall. Her body felt heavy, muscles humming with fatigue. She was thinking about her mother, about her own health, about everything she carried. Then she heard footsteps slow behind her. Noah's voice came carefully, low and soft. "You did amazing tonight," he said. Ivy didn't look at him immediately. Praise felt complicated when it came from the man who once left her fighting alone. Her silence wasn't punishment. It was her nervous system deciding whether it was safe to respond. Noah didn't fill the quiet with excuses. He stood beside her at a respectful distance, hands in his pockets, waiting. Finally, Ivy turned her head slightly. "Everyone did," she said. "This town survives because we have to." Noah nodded like he understood the weight behind it. They moved into an empty break room lit by a single lamp. Outside, the wind still rattled the windows, but softer now. The room smelled like stale coffee and antiseptic. Ivy poured water into a paper cup, hands steady. Noah watched her like he was learning how to be near her without taking space. "I'm not here to talk unless you want to," he said. Ivy took a sip, then looked at him. "Then why are you here?" she asked quietly. Noah exhaled slowly, as if choosing truth over comfort. "Because tonight made me remember," he said. His voice tightened slightly. "Watching those families like it brought back the moment I ran." Ivy's chest tightened, but she stayed calm, eyes sharp. Noah swallowed and continued. "I told myself leaving was logical," he admitted. "But it was fear. Pure fear." Ivy's jaw clenched. "Fear of what?" she asked again, steady. Noah's eyes dropped to his hands. "Fear of being needed," he said, barely above a whisper. "Fear of being responsible for someone else's pain." He looked up, shame plain in his face. "When you got sick, I felt weak." He laughed once, bitter and small. "Not because you were sick, because I couldn't control it." Ivy's throat tightened, but she didn't interrupt. Noah's voice broke into something honest. "And I hated that feeling more than I loved you." Silence hit the room like a heavy door closing. Ivy felt the words land in her like ice water, not because she didn't suspect the truth, because hearing it named was a different kind of wound. Her hands tightened around the paper cup. "You hated feeling out of control," she said slowly. Noah nodded, eyes glossy. "And you punished me for it," Ivy added, voice steady but raw. Noah flinched like he deserved to. "Yes," he whispered. "I did." Ivy leaned back against the counter, breathing carefully. This was the moment where the old Ivy would have begged for reassurance. But the woman she had become didn't beg. She asked for accountability. "So what changed?" she asked softly. "What made you come back now after years?" Noah swallowed, blinking hard. "I didn't come back because my career failed," he said quickly. "I'm still successful." Then his voice lowered. "I came back because I realized success didn't heal what I broke." Noah's confession spilled slowly, like blood you can't stop. He talked about nights in high-rise apartments where he couldn't breathe, about awards that felt like empty metal, about rooms full of people who applauded him and didn't know him. He admitted he started waking with his heart racing, hands shaking, mind trapped in a loop of regret. "I kept hearing your voice," he said. "The way you asked me to choose you while you were fighting." His eyes lifted to Ivy, full of grief. "And I realized I'd built a life that impressed strangers, while abandoning home." Ivy listened, expression controlled. Her heart wanted to soften, but she held it back with discipline. Pain doesn't grant someone immediate access. "You're telling me this because you want relief," she said calmly. Noah shook his head quickly. "No," he said, voice urgent but not demanding. "I'm telling you because you deserve the truth." He inhaled, forcing steadiness. "And because I want to be different whether you forgive me or not." Ivy studied him like a diagnosis. "Prove it," she said simply. Noah nodded once, accepting the command. "I'm trying," he said, then paused. "I used to speak in plans," he added quietly. "Now I'm trying to speak in actions." Ivy's eyes narrowed slightly. "So why did you choose Chicago that morning?" she asked. She needed the full truth, not pieces. Noah's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Because I was afraid you'd see me fail," he admitted. He looked at her, voice cracking. "And if I failed in front of you, I couldn't pretend I was strong." Ivy's breath caught, and for a moment her composure slipped. Not tears. A flash of hurt so sharp it almost made her dizzy. "So you left to protect your pride," she said quietly. Noah nodded, shame full in his face. "Yes," he whispered. Ivy stared at him, voice low and controlled. "That pride cost me nights I can't get back," she said. "It cost me fear I had to swallow alone." Noah's eyes spilled tears silently. "I know," he said, and he didn't ask to be comforted. The break room stayed quiet except for the distant hum of generators. Ivy's chest rose and fell slowly as she gathered herself. Then she spoke softer, not forgiving, just honest. "I don't hate you," she said. Noah looked up, startled by the mercy. "But I don't trust you," Ivy continued. Her voice steadied again. "And trust isn't rebuilt by one night of truth." Noah nodded, tears still on his cheeks. "I know," he whispered. "I'm not asking for trust tonight." Ivy's eyes held his. "Good," she said. "Because tonight, I only have room for reality." When Ivy finally stood to leave, Noah didn't stop her. He opened the door for her and stepped aside, respectful. In the hallway, the air was colder, the lights brighter. Ivy paused, hand on the door frame, and looked back once. "You're doing the right things," she said quietly. Noah's breath hitched like he hadn't expected any acknowledgement. "But if you stop," Ivy added, voice firm as steel, "you don't get another return." Noah nodded, eyes red, voice steady. "I won't stop," he said. "Not this time." Spring came in cautious pieces, like the town was afraid to hope too fast. Snow melted into muddy roads, then into green edges along fences. The farms woke up with early planting and tired hands. And Ivy's life stayed full. Shifts at the hospital, outreach routes, classes for continuing education. Noah remained in the background of that fullness, not trying to take her time, trying to earn a place in it. He learned her schedule the way a careful man learns sacred ground. He didn't show up with flowers and speeches. He showed up with consistency. If the outreach van needed maintenance, it was handled. If a patient couldn't afford medication, the foundation quietly covered it. If nurses were overwhelmed, Noah arranged childcare support without branding it. He kept his name out of the spotlight, and Ivy noticed that more than she wanted to, because the old Noah would have needed applause like air. This Noah acted like gratitude was enough. Ivy tested him without making it obvious. Not games, boundaries. She said no sometimes just to see what happened. Noah accepted no without sulking, without punishment, without pressure. He didn't become cold when she became distant. He didn't become charming when she became guarded. He stayed the same, steady. And Ivy realized she was watching a man practice self-control for the first time in his life. They met often about the wellness center, which had grown from a blueprint into something real. A building site on the edge of town, framed in new wood, promise rising out of dirt like a redeemed thing. Ivy pushed for accessibility, long-term staffing, mental health support. Noah pushed for funding and technology that wouldn't abandon rural families. They argued sometimes sharp and honest. But the difference now was that Noah didn't fight to win. He fought to understand. Their first real turning point came in the middle of a disagreement. Noah wanted a faster timeline, impatient with delays. Ivy's shoulders stiffened instantly, old memory flaring. She heard his old voice in the new one. The same urgency, the same edge, the same hunger for control. "I won't do this with you," she said quietly, stepping back. Noah froze, realizing what he'd triggered. His jaw tightened, then softened. "You're right," he said, voice low. "I'm scared again." And for the first time, he named fear instead of letting it drive him. Ivy stared at him, breath caught. That admission wasn't romantic. It was mature. It was the kind of honesty that didn't protect pride. Noah swallowed and kept going. "I'm scared I'll fail them," he said. "I'm scared I'll mess this up." He looked at Ivy, eyes steady. And I'm scared I'll lose your respect. Because it matters more than anything now. Ivy's throat tightened, but she didn't soften too quickly. Then slow down, she said. If you're scared, stop running. Noah nodded once. Okay, he whispered. I'll slow down. After that, Ivy allowed small closeness, carefully chosen. A coffee after a meeting, 5 minutes on her porch, a quiet ride to a farm visit when another nurse canceled. Noah never tried to turn those moments into romance. He didn't reach for her hand or demand her eyes. He talked about the town, the work, the reality. He listened when she spoke about patients who reminded her of herself. And Ivy began to feel something she hadn't felt in years, safe enough to breathe fully beside him. But safety doesn't erase trauma overnight. One evening, Noah missed a scheduled meeting. No message, no update, nothing for hours. Ivy felt her body react before her mind did. Heat in her chest, tightness in her throat, old panic waking up like a reflex. He's leaving again, her nervous system whispered, automatically cruel. She sat at her desk staring at the clock, then forced herself to stand and continue working. She would not spiral. She would not chase. But the hurt was real, and it sat heavy. When Noah finally arrived, he looked different. Rushed, breathless, shaken. He stopped in the doorway, eyes searching Ivy's face. I'm sorry, he began instinctively, then corrected himself immediately. No, there's no excuse, he said, voice tight. Ivy crossed her arms, calm face, storm inside. Talk, she said. Noah swallowed. A farmer's child was hurt, he said. I drove them in. He held up a hospital wristband as proof, not as theater. I should have called you, he added. I didn't. That's on me. Accountability, immediate, unprotected. Ivy's anger softened a fraction, but she didn't pretend it disappeared. They walked outside afterward, the sky fading into violet. Ivy kept her steps slow, controlled. Noah matched her pace, hands visible, not touching. I don't want you to relive what I did, he said quietly. Ivy looked at him, eyes tired. Then don't make my body remember, she replied. Noah nodded once, swallowing hard. I'll call next time, he said, even if my hands are shaking. Ivy's voice stayed firm. Next time matters, she said. Noah's answer came soft and steady. I know, he whispered. I'm learning that love is built in next times. A week later, Ivy's mother relapsed again, subtle but frightening. Ivy drove her to the hospital and held her hand through the tests. She kept her voice calm, but fear pressed heavy behind her ribs. Noah showed up without being asked. He didn't enter the room like he belonged there. He stood in the hallway, respectful, ready to help. When Ivy stepped out, eyes glossy, he didn't ask questions first. He said, do you want water, food, silence? That question, 3 options, no control, felt like someone finally understanding how to support without taking over. Ivy chose silence and Noah gave it to her. He sat with her in the waiting area, shoulder not touching hers, just close enough to remind her she wasn't alone. When her mother's doctor finally came out with a plan, Noah listened, took notes, asked practical questions, not to impress Ivy, to reduce her load. Later, when Ivy's mother fell asleep, Ivy stepped outside into cold air. Noah followed, still careful. You're carrying too much alone, he said softly. Ivy's eyes flashed. I learned to, she answered. Noah nodded, accepting the truth. And I'm asking to carry some, he replied. That night, Ivy opened the drawer where the old ring still lived. She held it between her fingers and realized it didn't sting anymore. It wasn't hope. It wasn't betrayal. It was simply a symbol of a girl who believed words too easily. Ivy set it down and whispered, I'm not that girl. Then she looked at her reflection and added, and I won't punish myself for wanting love again. Forgiveness wasn't giving him the past back. It was releasing herself from living inside the wound. Days later, the wellness center hosted a small, groundbreaking ceremony. Noah insisted Ivy speak first. He stood slightly behind her on the platform, hands clasped, eyes on her like she was the point. Ivy addressed the town with quiet power. This building is for everyone who felt forgotten, she said. For families who fight in silence, for farmers who don't have time to get sick, for mothers who carry fear without complaint. Her voice didn't crack. Her spine didn't bend. And when applause rose, Noah didn't step forward to share it. He let her have it. Afterward, Ivy found Noah behind the building site, alone. He stood looking at the frame of the center like it was a prayer answered. "I didn't know you could become this," he said softly. Ivy's jaw tightened. "I didn't have a choice," she replied. Noah nodded, shame flickering. "I know," he whispered. He turned to her, eyes wet but steady. "I'm sorry you had to become strong because I was weak." Ivy's throat tightened, but she didn't let herself collapse into it. "Then keep becoming," she said. "That's the only apology that counts." The first real act of forgiveness came quietly. No dramatic speech, no public moment. It happened on an ordinary evening when Ivy was exhausted, and Noah showed up with dinner, not as a date, but as care. He set the food on her porch table and waited for her to decide. Ivy looked at him, then at the food, then back at him. "You can stay for 15 minutes, she said softly. Noah exhaled like gratitude hurt. "Okay," he whispered. They ate in silence at first, then spoke about small things. And Ivy realized she was letting him be near her life again. Later, Noah stood to leave without lingering. That was the strange part. He didn't press, didn't ask for more, didn't try to steal a kiss. He simply said, "Thank you for the time." Ivy watched him step off the porch, then stopped him with a quiet voice. "Noah," she said. He turned, eyes soft. "I'm not promising anything," she said carefully, "but I'm noticing you." Noah nodded once, eyes shining. "That's all I want," he whispered. "To be seen honestly." After he left, Ivy stood alone under the porch light. The air smelled like damp earth and early spring. She touched her chest, feeling her heartbeat steady. Forgiveness didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like a door unlocking one click. Ivy whispered into the night. Not to him, to herself. "I can forgive without forgetting," she said softly. "And I can love without losing myself." Then she turned back inside, carrying hope like something fragile. But finally, possible. By early summer, Maple Ridge had stopped whispering and started watching. Not for gossip, for proof. The wellness center rose steadily from dirt and lumber, a promise taking shape against wide skies and golden fields. Noah's foundation kept funding flowing without fanfare. Ivy kept pushing details that no one thought about: access ramps, transportation routes, quiet rooms. Together, they moved like two people building something bigger than themselves. And the town began to understand. This wasn't a reunion story. It was a restoration story. Ivy still didn't call what they had love out loud. Not yet. She let it exist as consistency, as shared work, as respect. Because words had once trapped her in hope that wasn't protected. Noah didn't force language on it. He didn't label her his second chance like a trophy. He treated her like a woman with her own gravity, someone you approach carefully, with honor. That patience, more than anything, made Ivy's heart lean toward him again. The night the center's power system failed during a test run, Ivy expected Noah's old impatience to show. It was late, the crew was tired, and pressure pressed hard. Noah rubbed his forehead and exhaled slowly. Then he looked at Ivy, voice calm. "Tell me what you need," he said. Not, "I'll handle it." Not, "This is my project." Just an invitation to lead together. Ivy gave instructions, delegated calmly, and Noah followed through without ego. When the lights came back on, Ivy realized she wasn't bracing for disappointment anymore. A week later, Noah asked Ivy to meet him at the old field road at sunrise. Not a date, he didn't call it that. Just, "Something I want to show you." Ivy hesitated, suspicion flickering. But sunrise in Maple Ridge was its own kind of peace. She arrived with a jacket over her shoulders and hair still damp from a shower. Noah stood near the fence line holding 2 cups of coffee. No suit, no show, just him. He offered her a cup and said quietly, "Thank you for trusting me with your time." Ivy took it without speaking, and they watched the sky soften into gold. Noah's voice came low, careful. "I need to say something without asking anything in return," he began. Ivy's shoulders tensed, but she didn't turn away. Noah swallowed, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I've been trying to prove I can stay," he said, "and I will keep proving it, whether you choose me or not." He turned slightly, meeting her eyes for a brief moment. "But I want you to know the truth. I'm not here because I miss the past." He paused, voice thick. "I'm here because the woman you became is the kind of love I didn't deserve, but I want to honor." Ivy's chest tightened, but she held steady. "You honor it by staying steady," she said quietly. Noah nodded. "I know," he replied. Then he opened his jacket and pulled out a worn envelope. Not fancy, not dramatic. He handed it to Ivy with both hands like something sacred. Inside was a document, a long-term endowment agreement. His foundation would fund the wellness center for 10 years minimum, with Ivy's program protected, independent, and led by a community board, not by Noah. He had written her freedom into the structure. Ivy stared at the paper, breath caught. This wasn't a gift. It was a surrender of control. "You didn't have to do this," Ivy whispered, voice barely there. Noah's eyes shone. "I did," he said softly. "Because I can't ask you to trust me if I'm holding power over your purpose." He swallowed. "I used to think love was possession," he admitted. "Now I know love is protection." Ivy looked at him, throat burning. He wasn't buying redemption. He was building accountability into the future. And Ivy felt something shift inside her. A door opening, another click. Still, Ivy's fear didn't disappear. That night she dreamed of the porch 3 years ago. The suitcase, the note, the cold sunrise. She woke with her heart racing, palms sweaty, breath shallow. Old trauma doesn't ask for permission. It visits when you least expect it. Ivy sat up, pressing a hand to her chest, eyes in the dark. Her phone buzzed a moment later. A single message from Noah. "Just checking in. No need to reply. Hope you're resting. No demand. No pressure. Just quiet care." Right when her body was remembering abandonment, Ivy stared at the screen until tears blurred the words and she whispered, "He's still here." The next day, Ivy asked Noah to meet her after work. Her voice sounded calm, but her hands trembled slightly. They sat on a bench behind the hospital where the air smelled like cut grass. Noah waited, posture open, eyes attentive. Ivy looked straight ahead and said, "I need to say this clearly." Noah nodded once. "I forgive you," Ivy said, voice steady but raw. Not as a reward, as a decision. Noah inhaled sharply, eyes widening, but he didn't reach for her. He didn't steal the moment with touch. He whispered, "Thank you," like it hurt and healed at the same time. Ivy continued, firm. "But forgiveness doesn't mean the past didn't happen. It means I won't live inside it anymore." Noah's eyes filled with tears, and he let them fall without shame. "I don't deserve that," he said quietly. Ivy finally turned her head to face him. "Maybe not," she replied, "but I deserve peace." The words landed between them like a boundary and a blessing. Noah nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll keep earning trust," he said. Ivy's voice softened slightly. "Good," she replied. "Because I'm not offering blind faith. I'm offering a chance to build something new." Noah's breath shuddered. "I want that," he whispered. And Ivy believed him, because he didn't say it like a promise. He said it like a commitment. Their relationship shifted after that, slowly and naturally. No sudden romance montage, no unrealistic happiness, just small steps. Noah driving Ivy's mother to appointments. Ivy letting Noah cook dinner in her kitchen without feeling invaded. Noah fixing the porch light without making a joke about coming back. Ivy laughing, softly, cautiously, when he burned toast. They learned each other again as adults, not as the people they used to be. And Ivy realized love could feel safe when it wasn't rushed. Noah realized intimacy wasn't weakness, it was courage. One evening, Noah asked if he could hold her hand. He didn't just reach for it, he asked. Ivy stared at him, surprised by how much that question mattered. Consent wasn't romantic, it was respect. It was the opposite of abandonment. A choice offered, not taken. Ivy slid her hand into his slowly, testing the reality. Noah's fingers trembled slightly as he held her, gentle and careful. He didn't squeeze too tight. He didn't treat it like victory. He treated it like trust, fragile and precious. Ivy breathed out, the tension in her chest softening. "Okay," she whispered. The day the wellness center opened, the whole town gathered. Balloons, homemade pies, kids running through grass. A ribbon stretched across the entrance like a small ceremony for a big healing. Ivy stood beside the door in a simple dress, hair pinned back, eyes bright. Noah stood a step behind her, not taking center stage. He watched Ivy greet families, laugh with nurses, hug her mother tightly. When Ivy cut the ribbon, applause erupted. But Noah didn't clap the loudest. He just looked at her like she was a miracle he would protect for the rest of his life. And Ivy felt his gaze like warmth. Steady, not consuming. Later, when the crowd thinned, Noah found Ivy in the quiet hallway of the new center. Sunlight poured through windows, making dust look like gold. He approached slowly, like he still respected every boundary. "Ivy," he said softly, "can I tell you something?" Ivy nodded, heart steady. Noah's voice lowered. "I used to think leaving made me strong," he said. "But staying when it's hard, has been the strongest thing I've ever done." He swallowed. "And I want to keep staying." Ivy's eyes softened, but her strength didn't disappear. "Then stay," she replied. "In the ordinary, in the inconvenient, in the real." Noah nodded, eyes shining. "I will," he whispered. Noah reached into his pocket, then stopped. He didn't pull anything out yet. Instead, he looked at her and said, "I don't want to rush you." Ivy's breath caught. He continued, "I don't want to repeat who I was, taking comfort when you needed time." He paused. "So I'm not asking for a wedding. I'm not asking for forever today." He swallowed, voice thick. "I'm asking for permission to build a future with you slowly." Ivy stared at him, heart pounding. That question was different than a grand proposal. It was maturity disguised as romance, and it made her eyes burn. "Yes," she whispered. "Slow is safe." Noah exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Still, Noah wanted to mark the moment in a way that honored her strength. He pulled out a small box, not flashy, not oversized. Inside was a simple ring, elegant and understated. Not a chain, not a claim, a symbol. He held it between his fingers, voice trembling. "This isn't a reward," he said. "It's a promise to stay consistent." He didn't kneel dramatically. He didn't put on a show. He simply asked, eyes steady, "Can I place this on your hand as a commitment to the life we're building?" Ivy's throat tightened. She looked at the ring, then at him, and she nodded slowly, tears falling without shame. "Yes," she whispered, "you can." Noah slid the ring onto her finger like it was sacred. Then he waited, still, not rushing. Ivy stepped forward first. She lifted her hands to his face, feeling the warmth of him, the reality. Noah's eyes closed briefly, like he couldn't believe he was allowed to be near her. "I'm not the woman you left," Ivy whispered. Noah's voice broke. "I know," he said. "And I'm not the man who left you." Ivy stared at him, searching for any trace of old selfishness. She found only humility and devotion. So she leaned in, slow and sure, and kissed him. Deep, steady, not desperate. A kiss that said, "This is new, this is earned, this is real." When they pulled apart, Ivy rested her forehead against his. Outside, the town lights blinked on as evening settled. The fields stretched wide and peaceful, like a promise kept. Noah wrapped his arms around her gently, careful even in closeness. Ivy exhaled into his shoulder and felt something she thought she'd lost forever, a sense of home. Not a place, a person who chose to stay. She whispered, voice soft and sure, "We'll build this one day at a time." Noah held her tighter, eyes wet, smile small. "One day at a time," he promised. "For the rest of my life." The days after the opening didn't feel like a movie ending. They felt like real life. Gentle, imperfect, quietly sacred. Ivy returned to her routine with the same steady discipline that had saved her before. She made rounds at the hospital, checked charts, spoke to families who carried fear in their eyes. She drove the outreach routes when the sun was still low, and she stood in the wellness center hallway watching strangers exhale, like they finally believed help could reach them here too. And Noah didn't disappear when the applause faded. He stayed in the small moments that never get celebrated. He sat in uncomfortable chairs beside Ivy's mother during long appointments. He stocked supplies when shipments arrived late. He fixed broken hinges, replaced light bulbs, carried boxes without making it a symbol. He learned Ivy's triggers and honored them without resentment. When she grew quiet, he didn't demand explanation. He offered presence. When fear visited her at night, he didn't try to solve it. He stayed steady until her breathing slowed. One evening, Ivy found him outside the wellness center after closing. The sky was painted soft with dusk, fields stretching wide in gold. Noah stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the windows glow. "It's working," he said quietly, almost like prayer. Ivy stepped beside him, shoulder close but not pressed. "It's healing people," she replied. Noah nodded, eyes wet. "It's healing me too," he admitted. Ivy turned to him, the ring catching the last light. "You know this doesn't erase anything," she said, gentle but firm. Noah met her gaze without flinching. "I don't want it to erase," he answered. "I want it to redeem." He swallowed. "Because what we have now isn't the love we thought we had." His voice softened. "It's stronger. It's honest. It's earned." Ivy's throat tightened, but her strength didn't run away from tenderness anymore. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his slowly. "You came back expecting me to be broken," she whispered, eyes shining. Noah's mouth trembled into a small, humbled smile. "And you didn't expect me to be strong." Ivy finished. Noah shook his head, voice thick. "No," he said, "I didn't." Then he looked at her like she was the greatest thing he'd ever learned. "And I've never been more grateful to be wrong." The wind moved through the fields like a soft hymn. Noah lifted Ivy's hand and kissed her knuckles. Slow, reverent. Not claiming, not performing. Honoring. Ivy stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. For a moment, the whole world felt quiet, not the lonely silence of abandonment, but the peaceful silence of safety. "I don't need grand promises," Ivy whispered. Noah's arms wrapped around her carefully like he still respected the miracle of being allowed. "I won't give you grand," he whispered back. "I'll give you daily." Ivy's eyes closed, a tear slipping free, not from pain this time, from relief. Then Ivy lifted her face and kissed him again, deeper, warmer, certain. A kiss that didn't ask, "Will you leave?" A kiss that said, "You stayed." And as the lights of Maple Ridge blinked on behind them, and the new wellness center glowed like a promise kept, Ivy finally believed something she hadn't dared to believe for years. Love could return, not as a repeat of the past, but as redemption, built through actions, protected by time, and strong enough to last. The end